When an African nation falls into crisis, who comes to its aid? For years, leaders across the continent have spoken passionately about African unity, about standing together, lifting each other up, and building a future free from foreign control. But when tested, that unity often fades. Time and again, we've watched African leaders turn on each other, chasing the approval of Western powers instead of standing in solidarity. It's a painful truth that has haunted the continent for decades, yet something different is taking shape. In the heart of the Sahel, a new alliance is rising. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, bound together under the banner of the AES. Unlike the empty promises of the past, this alliance is showing what real unity looks like. When Mali recently faced a devastating fuel shortage, Niger didn't hesitate. It sent 40 tankers of fuel across the border, not alone, but with a full military escort. A bold, symbolic move, one that says, "We protect our own." But this powerful act raises urgent questions. Why was there a need for a military escort? What danger threatened this humanitarian mission? And why is Mali facing a fuel crisis in the first place? To understand the depth of this moment, we have to dig deeper. In recent weeks, northern Mali has plunged into a deepening fuel crisis, one that's rippling through every layer of society. What began as a supply disruption has quickly evolved into an economic emergency. In cities like Timbuktu, the price of gasoline has skyrocketed, from 700 CFA francs per liter to an alarming 3,000, even reaching as high as 5,000 and 7,000 CFA francs in places like Manaka. In Bandiagara, fuel has all but disappeared, bringing daily life to a grinding halt. Transportation has collapsed, markets stand empty, and in the fields, farmers wait helplessly as their tools sit idle. The crisis hasn't spared Gao either. There, prices now range from 1,500 to 2,000 CFA francs per liter, triggering widespread panic and hardship. The effects are devastating. In rural towns, goods can't be moved, crops can't be cultivated. Families are being forced to choose between survival and silence. Even in the capital, Bamako, the tension is boiling over. Spontaneous protests have erupted outside fuel stations. Taxi drivers, market traders, and everyday citizens are voicing their anger, trapped in an economic chokehold they didn't create. This is no longer just a shortage. It's a full-blown national emergency. But what triggered this sudden and severe fuel shortage in northern Mali? To understand that, we have to look beyond economics and into geopolitics. The roots of this crisis trace back to escalating tensions between Mali and its northern neighbor, Algeria. The breaking point came when Algeria claimed it had shot down a Malian military drone, allegedly because it crossed 2 kilometers into Algerian airspace. But Malian authorities disputed that narrative, asserting the drone was found in Tinzaouaten, a border town firmly on Malian soil, known not only for its strategic location, but also as a stronghold for Tuareg separatist fighters. Here's where it gets even more complicated and revealing. It wasn't actually the Algerian military that brought the drone down. It was the Tuareg rebels themselves. Just hours after Algeria's official statement, the rebel group came forward, claiming responsibility. They described the drone as property of the terrorist junta in Bamako, showing open hostility toward the Malian government. That raises a troubling question. Why is Algeria shielding these rebel fighters? The answer lies in a long-standing strategy. Algeria has consistently supported nearly every form of opposition against the Malian government, whether religious, secular, or tribal. It has used them as pawns in a regional game of influence. And while Mali's transitional military government has refused to bend to this pressure, the cost of resistance is becoming clear. One of those costs? The deliberate blocking or disruption of fuel routes, which has now plunged northern Mali into chaos. But for today, we're not diving into the full extent of Mali-Algeria relations. Instead, we're focusing on the consequences, the fuel crisis, the economic paralysis, and the growing calls for true African solidarity in the face of calculated sabotage. Following the drone incident, tensions between Mali and Algeria escalated rapidly, so much so that both countries moved to shut down their airspace. Flights between the two nations were halted, and diplomatic relations turned icy. But that was only the beginning. Algeria went a step further. It imposed a blockade on the movement of subsidized goods into northern Mali, with fuel being the most critical among them. While the rest of Mali can rely on alternative routes and trading partners, the northern region, isolated and often neglected, has long depended almost exclusively on Algerian supplies. From pasta and flour to fuel, these essentials are the lifeblood of daily survival in the north. But what makes this situation even more alarming is that the blockade wasn't just a decision by the Algerian state. Reports indicate it was heavily influenced, if not outright demanded, by the leadership of the Tuareg rebel factions. These are the same groups that have operated in the region for years, sowing instability and challenging the central government in Bamako. And here lies the bitter irony. These rebel leaders who live among the people of northern Mali knowingly banned the sale of fuel, fully aware of how vital it is to the local population. With this move, they didn't just cut off access to a commodity, they crippled transport, strangled agriculture, and suffocated local economies. And while ordinary Malians are forced to watch their livelihoods collapse, the rebels likely maintain full access to fuel, controlling it, hoarding it, and selling it at inflated prices. This isn't just exploitation, it's weaponized scarcity. The fuel that once powered villages and connected families is now being used to fund chaos. And the people paying the price are the very ones the rebels claim to represent. Tragically, it's the ordinary people of northern Mali who are paying the highest price for a crisis they didn't create. While rebel leaders posture for power and Algeria plays geopolitical chess, families in towns and villages are left in the dark, literally and figuratively. No fuel means no transport, no market activity, no farming, and no way to earn a living. Yet, these same rebel leaders who cripple the region with their decisions now demand to have a country of their own. But how can they lead when their very actions betray the people they claim to represent? The truth is painfully clear. The fuel ban wasn't a strategic mistake. It was a calculated move. These leaders understand the power of fuel. Without it, life grinds to a halt. Goods can't move, food can't be transported, water pumps go dry, and the economy collapses. And when people can't feed their families, when they can't reach hospitals or schools, when they can't earn a living, their anger turns toward the government. Chaos follows. Protests erupt. Trust evaporates. That is the playbook. Create pressure. Spark unrest. Use the suffering of the people as a weapon against the state. This isn't leadership, it's sabotage disguised as revolution. And in the end, it's not just Mali's government that is under attack. It's the very soul of its people, exploited and manipulated in a struggle for power. Frustration is boiling over in Mali, and it's spreading fast. What began as a regional crisis in the north has now ignited unrest in the capital. In Bamako, long lines at gas stations have turned into flashpoints of anger. Citizens are fed up, and the mood is tense. Spontaneous demonstrations are breaking out. People are shouting not just for fuel, but for answers. In moments like this, it doesn't take much to push a fragile situation over the edge, and that's exactly what makes it dangerous. All it would take is one agitator, someone quietly sent by the Tuareg rebel leaders, to turn frustration into full-blown riots. That kind of manipulation isn't just ruthless, it's diabolical. But none of this is truly surprising. These same rebels, who parade themselves as freedom fighters, have long had bloody alliances with terrorist groups. Together, they've launched attacks on civilians and ambushed Malian soldiers. And now they claim to be fighting for independence? Let's not rewrite history. When Mali's forefathers fought against French colonization, they didn't massacre their own people. They didn't destroy villages or partner with enemies of the state. They fought with courage, discipline, and a vision for national dignity. What the so-called Azawad independence fighters are doing now is not a struggle for freedom. It's a betrayal. Their chaos has created a vacuum. And in that vacuum, foreign powers like France are more than ready to step in and exploit the instability. These rebels, blinded by their hunger for control, may have opened the door to the very domination they claim to resist. Perhaps in the beginning, back in the 1960s, the Tuareg rebellion had a cause rooted in genuine grievances, a desire for recognition, inclusion, and identity. But today, that original mission has been corrupted beyond recognition. What we see now is not a fight for freedom, but a carefully orchestrated campaign of chaos, allegedly driven by foreign interests. And yes, France stands accused. According to Mali's former prime minister, captured Tuareg fighters revealed under interrogation that their renewed insurgency in 2015 was not self-motivated, but ordered by France. If that is true, it casts a dark shadow over the rebels' supposed quest for independence. Because a real independence movement is rooted in unity. It's built on the collective will of a people. But in this case, the broader Tuareg community has not rallied behind this cause. Instead, a scattered group of armed men, many with ties to terrorist networks, have taken it upon themselves to unleash suffering. The latest proof of their true nature, the cruel ban on fuel in northern Mali, they knew exactly what it would do. They knew it would starve the economy, silence transportation, and choke the people into desperation. And yet, they did it anyway. But amid this darkness, a powerful act of brotherhood has emerged. Niger, under the leadership of its military government, rose to the moment. In a show of true African solidarity, Niger dispatched a convoy of 40 fuel tankers to northern Mali. Escorted by a joint military force, the convoy arrived safely in Gao, bringing with it not just fuel, but hope. Hope that the spirit of unity within the AES alliance is more than just words. It's action, it's resistance, and it's a message. When African nations stand together, no crisis is too great to overcome. Now, with all that we've uncovered, the presence of a military escort begins to make perfect sense. This wasn't just a routine fuel delivery, it was a high-risk operation through a volatile region. The authorities in Mali know exactly what's at stake. They understand that the current fuel shortage wasn't a coincidence. It was engineered, deliberately, by the Tuareg rebel leadership. And if the rebels were willing to starve their own region of fuel, then attacking or hijacking the tankers would not be out of the question. That's why security was paramount. The delivery of fuel became a strategic mission, carried out under a joint security arrangement between the armed forces of Niger and Mali. The Nigerian army provided protection up to Labazanga, a border town, where the convoy was then handed over to Mali's military for the final stretch to Gao. This was more than a gesture of unity. It was a clear demonstration of coordinated strength in the face of shared threats. Colonel Ibrahim Samassa, commander of Mali's first military region, praised the operation, highlighting FAMA's ongoing commitment to protecting vital supply lines in the north. The FAMA are always ready to escort convoys to supply the northern regions with fuel and basic necessities, he affirmed. In a region under siege by chaos and manipulation, these convoys have become lifelines, and the soldiers protecting them, the guardians of stability. Thankfully, the convoy of 40 fuel tankers reached its destination safely. For the people of northern Mali, who have endured weeks of soaring prices, paralyzed transportation, and halted daily life, this is a lifeline. It won't erase all their troubles, but it will ease the burden, restore some normalcy, and bring much-needed relief. And none of this would have been possible without the strengthening bond between Niger and Mali, nurtured under the growing framework of the Alliance of the Sahel States, AES. Just imagine if this alliance didn't exist. If Mali had been left alone, as it so often was in the past, how would it have navigated this crisis? That's the painful reality Africa has known for far too long. When one country falls into crisis, it is usually abandoned, offered nothing more than statements of sympathy and diplomatic silence. Help only arrives when the ripple effects of that crisis threaten neighboring borders. Solidarity, until recently, was conditional. History reminds us. When Mali's security crisis erupted in 2011, not a single African nation came to its aid. Not Burkina Faso, not Niger, not Chad. Mali was left to face the chaos alone. It wasn't until the flames had spread across the entire Sahel that the region scrambled to respond, eventually forming a joint force, with France leading from behind the curtain. But today, something is shifting. The AES is more than a bloc. It is a declaration that African nations are finally beginning to stand for each other. And this fuel convoy is proof. When unity is real, resilience follows. It's been almost 14 years since Gaddafi's fall plunged Libya into chaos, and the silence from the rest of Africa has been deafening. With no stable government, Libya has become a lawless zone dominated by armed groups and slave traffickers, while its citizens suffer in despair. Yet, not a single African country has stepped forward to offer meaningful help. This mind-your-business approach has been one of the greatest obstacles to achieving true African unity. For decades, the African Union has struggled to bring the African Continental Free Trade Area to life, but the effort continues to stall, mainly because African countries are more eager to trade with outsiders than with each other. Borders are thrown open for foreign goods, but tightly shut when it comes to neighboring African nations. It's a bitter irony that undermines every vision of a united, integrated continent. However, the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, is beginning to chart a new course. The recent act of solidarity by Niger, sending 40 fuel tankers to Mali during a crippling fuel crisis, is a powerful example of what unity in action looks like. It shows that when African nations stand together to confront a crisis, the impact is immediate and meaningful. Thanks to this support, Mali can now temporarily ease the tension caused by the shortage while searching for a permanent solution. More importantly, it proves that African nations don't have to wait on the West to solve their problems. They can and must rely on each other. The AES is doing more than just protecting borders. It's planting the seeds of a new era in African cooperation. Interestingly, this isn't the first time Niger has stepped in to support Mali during a crisis. Back in 2024, Mali was grappling with a devastating energy crisis that lasted for months. Power cuts became the norm across major cities like Bamako, Mopti, Kayes, and Ségou. The electricity supply grew increasingly erratic, leaving homes in darkness and paralyzing critical sectors such as small-scale manufacturing, businesses, and even essential services. Artisans couldn't work, industries slowed down, and the economy began to choke. As frustration mounted, support for the transitional government started to wane. Civil society groups began calling for demonstrations, demanding action and accountability. In response to the growing unrest, Mali's Minister of Energy, Bintou Kamara, was forced to confront the issue publicly. She admitted that the crisis had reached everyone, including herself, and pointed to a critical source of the problem: fuel trafficking. According to her, diesel meant for powering Mali's thermal plants was being diverted and sold illegally, severely compromising electricity production. It was a moment that laid bare not only the vulnerabilities in Mali's energy sector, but also the consequences of internal corruption and regional instability. Once again, Niger's willingness to assist, both in 2024 and now, demonstrates a level of regional solidarity that is sorely lacking across most of the continent. Through the AES, countries like Niger are proving that African challenges require African solutions, built not on dependency, but on mutual strength. According to several observers, the root of Mali's energy crisis went far deeper than fuel shortages or power plant inefficiencies. Years of neglect and mismanagement had hollowed out the state-owned electricity company, EDM. Once a pillar of national infrastructure, EDM had become a shadow of its former self, burdened by over 200 billion CFA francs, approximately $330 million, in debt. Beyond its financial collapse, it had reportedly become a tool for political patronage, with some claiming it was being used to funnel resources into the pockets of political parties. With such staggering liabilities, the company could no longer guarantee a stable electricity supply, even in the capital Bamako. This collapse added fuel to growing public discontent, and the blame quickly landed on the shoulders of Colonel Assimi Goïta. Prominent opposition figures like Husseini Amion Gwindo seized the moment, using the crisis as political ammunition to call for Goïta's resignation. While the government pointed to long-term solutions, such as the nuclear energy partnership signed with Russia, these plans would take years to materialize. Mali needed immediate relief. That's when Niger stepped up once again. In a move that underscored the strength of the AES alliance, Niger provided emergency energy assistance, helping Mali weather one of its most politically sensitive and economically damaging crises. It wasn't just fuel. It was a lifeline that reinforced the power of African solidarity in times of need. You see, Niger is quickly emerging as a key player in Africa's energy landscape, thanks to the completion of a massive 2,000-kilometer crude oil pipeline stretching from the Agadem Rift Basin to the Port Seam terminal in the Republic of Benin. With a production capacity of 110,000 barrels per day, 90,000 of which are designated for export, Niger is no longer just a landlocked Sahelian country. It is positioning itself as a regional energy hub, and rather than hoarding its newfound energy wealth, Niger is using it to foster regional cooperation. In a bold and strategic move, it signed a landmark agreement with Mali to supply affordable diesel to ease Mali's energy crisis and strengthen its power grid. Under this new agreement, diesel supply to Mali will surge from 22 million liters to 150 million liters per year, sold at nearly half the regular market rate. This deal, signed by Niger's petroleum minister Mohamed Mustafa Barke and Mali's transitional leader Colonel Assimi Goïta, marks a major step toward real regional energy integration. The diesel will be delivered directly to Mali's state energy company, which will distribute it to power stations across the country. In the official statement, this supply was hailed as a game changer that will ensure more stable electricity production and boost Mali's socio-economic development. Colonel Goïta praised the partnership as exemplary, urging both nations to deepen their collaboration for a future where African nations support one another, not just in words, but in transformative action. This landmark agreement builds on the momentum of a broader regional pact signed in February 2024 between Niger and its Sahelian allies, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Chad, under the umbrella of the Alliance of the Sahel States, AES. In that earlier agreement, Niger committed to supplying diesel to all three nations, positioning itself as a central energy provider for the region. To make this vision a reality, Niger's military government has announced plans to construct a new diesel refinery dedicated to meeting the fuel demands of its Sahel partners. The agreement marks a significant step toward deepening bilateral and multilateral ties, reinforcing a sense of shared destiny among AES members and their neighbors in the region. What makes this deal truly remarkable is the spirit in which it was forged. Niger's decision to provide diesel to Mali at almost half the usual market rate is more than generous. It's revolutionary in the context of African geopolitics. It signals a commitment not to profit from crisis, but to help resolve it. Had this been a deal brokered by the West, China, or even Russia, the fine print would likely include access to Mali's gold, uranium, or other natural resources. But Niger, understanding the gravity of Mali's energy struggles and the fragility of its economy, asked for nothing but fair cooperation. This is the type of African-to-African partnership that should be replicated across the continent, a partnership built on empathy, sovereignty, and mutual progress. Thanks to this deal, Mali is already beginning to stabilize its energy supply, paving the way for broader socio-economic development and renewed hope. The reduced cost of diesel isn't just a symbolic gesture, it has real, transformative impact. For Mali's energy sector, it means significant savings that can now be redirected toward long-term energy infrastructure, investment in renewable solutions, or critical social programs aimed at lifting communities out of poverty. For everyday citizens, the affordability of diesel translates into more reliable electricity, lower transportation costs, and an easing of economic pressure. In a country where frustration over fuel shortages and power cuts has sparked unrest, this agreement also serves to calm public anger, rebuild trust, and strengthen confidence in the leadership of the transitional government. This is the power of African nations working together. The Alliance of the Sahel States, AES, isn't just a political alliance. It's a blueprint for what genuine African unity and regional integration can achieve. When African countries take responsibility for each other, crises are no longer isolating. They become opportunities for collective strength and transformation. What do you think about this kind of cooperation? Let us know in the comments section below. And don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories shaping Africa's future.